Hey, welcome back, everybody. We're here for another episode of PCH Pit. We're excited for another FR season to get kicked off and get underway. Obviously, kickoff was Saturday. Lots to think about in the last couple of days. We got a fun episode. We got a fun group of hosts for generating some good, hopefully entertaining content. Hopefully a little bit insightful as well. We'll see what we can do. But we're going to cover some things like the current state of the district moving into this new season, some strategies for this new game, what some initial reactions are, robot designs from the past that might have some places in this game, and a little bit of everything in between. We'll see what comes up. But before we get started, I have a disclaimer, just general that we have for PCH Pit show here. But we have to make the usual disclaimer that any views or opinions shared on the show are solely that of the individual contributor and do not reflect the views of PCH Pit, any FRC team, First, Georgia First, or any of their affiliates and sponsors. Or South Carolina First, for that matter. I think we copied these notes from last year, so a few updates to make. But show introduction, again, the idea behind the show is to serve as an FRC talk show that focuses primarily on the Peachtree District. We're going to talk about a variety of topics, so don't be surprised if you see us drop some hot takes. Ultimately, we're hoping to provide some entertaining and engaging discussions. We're going to do some host introductions. I'll get the ball started, so we don't coordinate this ever. But my name's Kellen, mentor for Team 1746 Auto, up and coming.
I'm David Allred. I'm a mentor for Team 4451 Robots Garage out of Sakakalaki.
I'm Brian Carlson with 6829 and Night Robotics, and these are definitely my own opinions because I was actually building field elements today, so I have no idea what they talked about.
Hi, I am Thomas Priego. I am a general agent of chaos for Team 1746.
We know it.
For some reason, they keep bringing me back, so it is what it is. Out of as Kellen put, coming Georgia.
Great to have all of you here. David, we're excited to have you on as a new host for the show. We're happy to have you on for some of that district insights that once we kind of pulled South Carolina and Georgia together. So good to have someone here for South Carolina views and perspectives. For anybody watching, normally we'll have any kind of rotation of hosts going. So we'll have a couple of our usuals on and off throughout the season. So keep your eyes and ears peeled for them. But as always, we're happy to have whoever we have on each week. But I guess what we'll get started with is talking a little bit about the state of the Peachtree District. So what has changed since I guess March or early April of 2022 when the Peachtree season wrapped up last year? Obviously, we had our show this offseason when the exciting news broke that Georgia and South Carolina were merging for the Peachtree District. We get a couple of heavy hitters in that added to the district. I guess from both sides, everybody gets added. But from the Georgia perspective, at least, we're adding them. We got a 4451, obviously, for David's team here. 1102 has been one that Georgia teams have been familiar with for a couple of years while they were part of the Peachtree District. Just some numbers to throw out. We have about 66 Georgia teams, I think 28 South Carolina, and then we do have a North Carolina team that's intending to attend the Hartsville event, I think, just as an outside of the district team coming in from another district. So always happy to see some outsiders come in and compete with our Peachtree teams. We do have 5 rookie teams, I think 4 from Georgia, 1 from South Carolina. But again, cool makeup of the district. I think it's awesome to be back about where Georgia was by itself. I think pre-pandemic, we were about that 95 team number, which I think with the merger, we're about back at that size. So I think that offers some interesting things for the amount of district events that are able to be offered, as well as then sending a few more teams to Houston to represent our district. With that being said, for Houston, we get what is it again? A single championship event in Houston. But they've announced an increase in size. Does anybody have numbers handy? I think it went up
600,
from
600 teams for 8
I think
divisions
they've
of 75.
it's going to be similar to what it was St. Louis in 2016 with the 8 divisions and the divisional sizes.
So we've got an increase at least compared to last year. So which already helps out with the amount of teams we're qualifying for world champs. That then is kind of boosted a little bit by then South Carolina and Georgia mashing together. So with in that news, we have 17 qualifying spots, which is up from I think 10 last year. So with the amount of 9 or 10, but
it was 9.
It's really exciting because so many of those spots last year wound up being immediately locked up via either tournament champions at district championships or specific awards that we've opened up then a handful of additional spots then for district point qualifiers, which is where a lot of us linger. And I think it's always nice to have those opportunities open to qualify for Houston instead of just having to outright win the event or one of those awesome cultural awards. We'll do a quick overview. I know I'm doing a lot of the talking here, but we'll do a quick.
One of the things that's
ahead,
interesting about Worlds is they're not going to have the Einstein round robin play random double elimination. We will actually get if you play to win and you advance.
Because there'll be 8 total divisions, right? So you'll have the exact setup. I think it'll be interesting then in that case. So round robin made everything even, that everybody got to play everybody. Now it's kind of back of the luck of the well, I guess still not luck of the draw because of double elims that you still get. So curious in changes. I've been around since 2005, so I got to see all the
I have some
luck of
comments
the draw.
I have some comments on what it changes, but we'll see.
I honestly like this change. For me, it got the round robin could get quite boring in the end, especially after 2 years in or 3 years in a row of one team having their spot locked midway through round robin. I think in 2018 and 2019, 254 did not need to play their last match. They were in regardless.
Especially with those component tiebreakers, I think those were kind of the weird things to watch. That
was my comment, right? So in previous years with the round robin, you'd have to look at Einstein tiebreakers to see, and that might inform your design. In this case, the tiebreaker is technical foul points, not foul points, but technical foul points, and that goes for district events, district champs, everybody. So that ought to be an interesting change they've made. I think previously in 2016, when it was a tie in the final foul match, and it was one on foul points, total foul points, and I don't think it was in that year. I don't think it was total technical fouls. I think it was just total foul points.
Yeah,
it's literally a foul decided the world championship.
I don't.
Which is pretty painful. When it comes down to that, you just got to play another match and give the people what they want, I think.
Exactly.
I'd hope that First is wise enough to understand that no team – granted, if I win a world championship, I'll be pretty happy, but I'd prefer to win it not based on a technicality, if at all possible.
Yeah. It'd be nice to have an exception. Like, here's the tiebreaker, except at World Championship finals, keep going. Unless you have something like 2017 where you had this thing where you had a lot of ties, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most games don't have that. Just replay.
Mm-hmm. And that's something that's unique about this game when as compared to the last couple games we've had, this is a game that has a maximum score. There's a max score that teams can.
No, there's not. You can, all the penalties in the world, you can max those out as much as you want.
There's a theoretical max score that teams can score without penalties, assuming all things are even.
Are we talking about the game now?
We'll pump the brakes on that one.
We'll pump the brakes. That was just a passing comment.
In an interesting vein, since we were talking about how the number of teams we get to send to Worlds has increased, another thing that's increased with it is the number of teams we get to send through award qualifications. This year, we're back up to what we did in the past in 2019 with us sending 2 Inspiration Awards, what once was called Chairman's, 2 EIs, which is what we did last year. And we've also raised it from just sending 1 rookie all-star to sending 2. Now, I understand that since we only have 5 rookies in the district this year, what are y'all's opinions on Georgia First choosing to send 2 rookie all-stars instead of just sending 1? As it currently stands, assuming that Georgia First or the judges decide to award this to 2 teams at states, which they don't have to choose to do, but if 2 teams, I'm just for the sake of argument, we're assuming that they do. That would mean 40% of rookies would get to go to Worlds. When you compare this to other districts, Georgia is the only district of its size that has opted to send the two robots instead of just 1. So I'm gonna just raise to the rest of y'all. Do you think this is too many? What is the potential reasoning for this choice? And what is your opinions on on how this rookie all-star should be handled?
In my opinion, it's not too many out of 17. It'd be way too many out of 10. But we're talking about I think we should all agree that if a team has rookie all-star qualities, that we should send that team to Worlds. The question is, do you send a second one? And if you do send a second one, you're just saying, well, you just took another spot from another point winner that's been, more of a veteran team. I think it's a way to maybe encourage. I don't know what's in their mind because I'm not on the board, so I don't know if they're trying to encourage development of new teams.
Go on, Kellen.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm hoping it's putting the option in their pocket of saying, all right, if there are 2 good ones, we'll send 2 good ones. But and I think they're very aware of their option to not necessarily hand out both of those awards. But I'd hope they have that awareness of, all right, there are other teams in the district that a team loses out in order to give this award to a rookie in order to send them. So I hope they're very aware of that balance of, all right, it costs somebody a spot in order to send another rookie, or is it worth sending one of our veteran teams? I think an interesting note to make, I think last year with our 66 teams or whatever it was, I think we had, based on my numbers, I think seven rookies, and we had 1 rookie all-star spot. Now that we're a year past, and obviously a few changes have been made that we're a bigger district, but that we have less rookies but more spots for those rookie all-star awards. So
yeah, I'm okay with it. Basically, you look at all the different districts, right? There are several that are sending 2, so it's not like 2 is like unusual, right? And they don't know going in how many new teams they're going to have, right? It's just 1 more spot. There's still 11. There's still 11 spots available for basically winners and district point championships. So, would I like to have more district point slots? Sure, but this doesn't bother me. It's like if I'm going to say why 2 EI, why not just 1, right? So I'm okay with it. It doesn't bother me.
Which I think in the past there's been I think I'm a policy I'm a big fan of is that there's every effort to max out those EI spots because they're paid entry slots. Mm-hmm. So while it might not be the impact award and come with the bigger name, it does come with a check. Right. So I think Georgia First has made a good policy of sending as many free registrations as they can.
Right. Now that we're close to 100 teams, right? Looking at going into this year, you're going to probably have 11 slots, 8 are going to be district points roughly, right? It's good. There are some exceptions to the cases, right? Mechanisms last year performed really well, but generally speaking, rookies coming in are not. It's going to take a while for them to be to the point where they could look at getting into that world consideration. And having somebody go as a rookie to Worlds to see that helps them get further along. Like I know there's a team in Minnesota that made it to Worlds, like they weren't as far as they went, and it turns out they started inspiring all the teams in Minnesota, right, Kellen?
Yeah, that
Right.
was a while ago. But
Right.
yeah, it is pretty crazy to see what can happen when you send a team that has very little awareness of what the bigger world
Yeah.
of first looks like into that environment,
Right.
just to see what the enthusiasm that's generated by it.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Can be pretty
It's-
impactful.
And I think that's really good, and I like that First does have that option of if there's two deserving teams of winning that award that they get it. But I think that word deserving is really crucial.
Right.
If a team is doing all the things it needs to do to win a rookie all-star, it should win the rookie all-star. But I don't think rookie all-star should just be used of, oh, this team's a rookie and we want to send them to the Worlds, let's give them this ticket.
Right. So
Because
yeah.
in that same vein, you're giving a team a ticket for a team who isn't necessarily a rookie, but it might be a second-year team that can use that jump, or a team that has never gone to Worlds before can
Right.
you grab it and take that jump. That jump isn't necessarily something that is unique to rookie teams. There are tons of teams in this district that are low resource, low budget teams that are primed and ready to make that jump with something like this. So I think, like I said, if there are two rookie teams this season that they're, oh, you are a rookie all-star, you're doing the things that a rookie all-star should do, send them both. But if it's just one team or if it's zero teams, I think the committee should go, okay, there were no teams that should have won rookie all-star this year, because it does take away from the opportunities of other teams.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. I think we've covered that topic extensively. It'll only be 30 more minutes until we get to the actual game, so hold on to your seats. We're mirroring our podcast timing off of Dean Kamen's speech giving, so hold your horses, folks.
They kept him in check this year. It was only 10 minutes.
It takes a team. It takes a team. But just to move on, all right, we got a little bit of discussion about what we're looking at for PCH schedule. We won't get into this, as we'll do a little bit more on our intro videos to the events starting in March. But we've got an Albany event, which is curiously at, I think, 23 teams. But I've heard a little bit that there's a team that might drop out and put us down to 22 teams. So it'll be very curious to see what happens there for a smaller event than the required 24 teams for a full elimination series. Otherwise, we have Dalton week 2. Dalton and Anderson week 2, or is it? Or I didn't write
Anderson week
the
2,
week
yeah.
numbers down.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we got Gwinnett week 3, Carrollton and Hartsville week 4, or Carrollton 3, Hartsville 4, Macon 5, I think. Thomas might be helping me out here in a second, but we got an exciting set of events. We got a few teams crossing the border for Georgia and South Carolina heading opposite directions. Otherwise, we have what's sure to be an awesome show in Emerson, Georgia for district championships in week 6, with 50 of the state's or districts best teams in attendance. So we'll be sending about half of our teams to district championships. But I think, as we saw last year, I think there's a lot of exciting growth happening in the district, and we're going to see quite a show at that district championship event. Any quick thoughts on the schedule for this season? Or
I think it'll be cool to watch the Macon event, especially if it drops to 22 teams. Or Albany, not Macon. I remember going there last year, and I think we were 26 or 27 teams last year, and it being really fun at the tail end of alliance selection. So for it to be below 24, I can only imagine what that's going to be like and how fun that's going to be. Looking at the schedule, I think it's going to be very interesting. I think this year is unique in that in the past, there's been a district event that almost turns into a mini states. That was, I think, Carrollton last year, with it having Walton, 4188, 1771, and the mechanisms all just doing their things. So I think, and we don't really have that this year with a lot of the Gwinnett teams going 3-5 and everyone else going a different combo of everything else. So I think it's going to be really cool. We won't really get a good feel for what States is going to look like until States, because there's not really a competition that has a consolidation of talent.
Yeah.
Right.
So speaking of States, with us going from 45 to 50, for those trying to figure out what's going to take to get to States, sorry, district championship.
Okay. We are a state too, the state of confusion right now.
Yeah, district championship. It's, it used to be with 45, you needed to get in the high 40s of district points to advance to district championship. Going to 50, you're looking in the low 40s. And to sort of give you sort of some perspective, we have more events this year than last year, because we have 2 states together. So the 26 teams going to Albany last year, we're going to have a lot of events in the high 20s. And at Albany last year, there are only 4 teams that came away with less than 10 points. And so you're going to probably get in the teens. So 40, if you can get in the teens and you advance and sort of progress a little bit in the next competition, 40 is very attainable for you to do. So don't think that if you have a bad first competition that the district championship is out. You can definitely get there. And as you start talking about the game, different rules you can kind of fill to what can you do at your second competition to be that pick to help teams out.
Yeah, and comparing it to what the last year that Georgia First had, and a number of teams comparable to this are for the Peachtree District in 2019. That does hold true. The 50th team in 2019, which would be 4189, they had 43 district points. So they, if you can have one event where you maybe you're the 4th place team and you made it to Elam's, that can punch a ticket. So anything other than that would be really, really, really good.
Yeah.
Going along one quick. Go ahead, Brian.
At Worlds, I think the number based on 2019 and the same number of teams is probably right around 200 to 210 cutoff for going to Worlds based on points.
It's going to be around 190. Based on what I've looked at in 2019 and 2018. The line ends up being, because you have to remember, a lot of the auto qualifying spots end up double dipping. So like, for example, in 2019, or possibly, but with states being as heavily weighted as it is, a chairman's at Worlds can bump you into it. For example, 1683, one EI, and them and Kel were both at 192 and 197 with all of auto qualifications. As was, I think, 4188 also auto qualified that year. So it can be really, really good to just look at who's going to be double dipping. I think with Walton in our district is a potential double dip. 4188 is always a potential double dip. In those types of situations. So it's just something teams need to be look out for and be cognizant of. 190 and 200 isn't really a definitive number. That number can raise and lower depending on how awards get distributed down the table.
And this is something we can keep a lot closer eye on throughout the competition season. So let's keep moving the wheels and get any closer to the game. I will note that a 50-team district championship is nice in that it has a lot longer match turnaround times. So I'm all excited about that. All right, moving on to this year's game. And I'm going to embarrass myself here.
We have a new game?
Are you charged up?
Charged up.
Oh,
I was
I'm
looking for
charged
this.
up.
But yeah, we got brand new game. So all kinds of exciting stuff. What are everybody's initial reactions to this brand new game?
The first thing that I thought when I saw this game was, oh God, I guess we have to do swerve now. I was kind of hoping
With an exclamation point on the end. What is going on over here? We get to do swerve.
No, we have to. Just looking at it, I was going into the season hoping it'd be something like this, but they just put a massive wall in the middle or something to make it to where I could convince my kids where, hey guys, tank drive is cool. But
Thomas, hear me
But-
out. I
Hot
know we
take.
haven't gotten into designs yet, but you can extend up to 4 feet out of your frame perimeter, meaning you could be essentially like a 7 or 8 foot wall bot. Well, just throwing it out there. You can be
yeah,
be the wall,
we-
Thomas.
we-
Be the wall.
we can- yeah. So if any team wants to be the wall bot that makes swerve drives inoperable, please do that. With that being said, I think it's going to be a really cool game. I am not personally a big fan of swerve meta. I was kind of hoping there'd be a lot more nuance, but looking at this game, I think swerve drive, especially with how difficult I think scoring is going to be side to side, since you're going to be looking that angle is going to be tough, especially if you don't have vision too well. Being able
Thomas,
to
these are quick reactions.
Right.
All right, David, what do you think about the game?
All right, so my first hot take was, is that it? And what I mean by that is, I don't think I've ever played a game below 8 feet, ever. Right? I've always shot. If even my robot's low, I've shot something high. I've reached high. I've placed high. Blah blah blah. And it looks like a giant FTC game. So I don't know if they were trying to pump up FTC by having one of the same game pieces, so we have to look at them. And I am looking at them, by the way. But I don't know if that was a strategy, but it was like, I mean, it's going to be a challenging game. Don't get me wrong. It's just like from a visual, my first impression was, is that it?
Gotcha. Brian, what are your thoughts?
So I asked several people on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate this thing? With 10 being like great, right? And I was getting, lots. Everybody pretty much said 5. I'm at a 6. I think there may be some strategy gameplay that may, as we go along, as teams advance, it may become more interesting. Maybe it get a little better. The other thing that caught my attention is there's no major choice in your role in the bot, right? If you look
there is.
Well, hold on. So you look at last year, and we talked about this before, right? It's like, if I can just do traversal, right, I have a value in doing that, right? And so you can do something other than just scoring the game pieces, right? And this one, you pick which game piece, and so, all right, maybe not. There's okay. Like I said, I wasn't.
Okay, all right, fair enough. They might have figured it out too.
The other thing, really easy for playing schools and everything else, since it's not high. We've had problems as a community team. It's like, how do I shoot someplace where the
ceiling, right?
So I think that's going to be helpful for teams.
Yeah, I think that's around where I'd be at. I don't see anything interesting or new to these sphere of FRC. I think it's a lot of bits and pieces or things we've seen before. Crazy to adjust to, just modifications to make to things we've seen before. But I think one of the biggest things we're going to see teams need to get practice on or get awareness of is watching like traffic patterns. Traffic patterns have been big in a number of cycling games, for either like 2013 where you have only 2 loading stations, or 2017 where you only have two gear loading stations as well. But that alliances are crossing traffic, and all right, there's not too much space in front of our scoring grid. So how do we manage that traffic of getting in and out? Do we just drive straight over the bridge every single time? Which I think is a valid tactic. But I think it'll be very interesting to see what those traffic patterns look like for this game. I think that's going to be one of the bigger strategic aspects to sort out.
Yeah, we spoke a lot about traffic patterns today as well.
But yeah,
the other I want to throw in one other hot take here, though. When I said it's low, and Brian made a great point about being friendly to schools that don't have high ceilings. This game is also very, very friendly to a lower resource team. You've got 9 spots to score in. Only thing I have to do is pick something up and pop it down.
And it's beautiful because those low positions aren't that much less in points than middle or high. So
because you got the
Connect
4 game or the Link game or whatever.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, especially with it being the 5-point bonus for links, no matter where they are. I think that'd be it's very similar to how in 2017 you saw a lot of resource teams do really well with the bucket for gear, just drive real fast. So it'll be very interesting to see if that ends up being a really, really popular strategy this year.
2 things that caught my attention also. One is the typical double the points during Autumn is no longer the case. It's just you get 1 extra point, right?
Ooh. And I think we'll get into this a little bit, but for the like ranking point functionality. But the charging station, I think, is a really interesting twist in Autumn, is if you get up there and balanced, that you can get points that
help you to the rank.
Add up. Yeah. Exactly. So I think that's an interesting twist. I think that's
a very interesting twist.
And the other thing was, what was the other one? I forget. Come on. I'll get it in a second.
All right. So as a drive, I mean, like I said, it's a short game, and I was like, ugh, but it's a horizontal game too, so that's going to present some challenges for us. But it's going to be a fun game to coach because it's not only which game piece am I getting, it's where am I placing it. So we're going to have to be, head on a swivel, ready to go. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, and especially getting your face right in the glass so you can see down and where the game pieces are scored. I'm curious to see what the AV teams will get for audience displays or what points are scored where. Otherwise, yeah, you got to get your face right on the glass to see down and what scored where.
Mm-hmm.
So the other thing that is new, it's been done in the past several years ago before I was involved in FRC, which is a task that involves the other alliance, right? The cooperation task.
Mm-hmm.
That one's definitely a new one, right?
Well, no, 2012.
I don't.
Like I said,
Yeah.
I said
Cooperation Bridge.
Since I've
20.
Okay.
Right.
2015 had the cooperation bonus with the yellow
in the middle.
totes.
The yellow totes.
I'm a big fan of that game function being built in. That it's worth just as many points in elims as it is in qualifications. I think 2012 you're balancing a different bridge in the middle of the field with the competitor. Yep. 2015 you're stacking totes in the middle of the field with a competitor that again just disappears in elims. So to have a game functionality that overlaps strategically and still has value in elims, I'm a big fan of that.
I think it's going to be very interesting in the sense of you saw this in 2012, how a lot of teams, they would go, oh, we're not going to do the cooperation bridge with you. Like 254 had that issue a bunch, and a bunch of big. I wonder how that type of game is going to affect qual strategies, where some teams are going to go, if I can take a ranking point away from you instead of having to worry about giving me a ranking point.
We want to talk about that particular rank point for just a minute. Then
let's punt on ranking points for a moment.
Okay.
We're gonna get in some.
I've got some comments on that one because we discussed that one as well at our meeting.
Gotcha. Yeah, we're gonna punt a little bit on some FRC games. This reminds us of. We got some conversation on that. I think a little bit later for robots were reminded of or strategies were reminded of. So we'll get a little bit more of that later. But for some deep dive questions, what I get, and I put these down. So if you guys have anything to add or throw out there. First one I got, cones or cubes. Is there really a difference between the two? Is there value in specializing in one and then just doing it really well? What are your thoughts?
I think the link being a thing, and you're not able to get a link unless it's only on the bottom 4. So you can only get 3 links by doing one game piece. So I think it'd be very beneficial for teams to be able to do both. That being said, if you're only going to be able to do one, I think being able to do cones well has more scoring opportunities than that of just doing cubes.
I somewhat disagree, because if you can only do one, that type of bots, I can only do one, then they could run the town on the level 1 and go nonstop down there with whichever one they do. Right? They don't have to go higher up. And maybe they could, if they could get the ability to extend a little bit, they can always do either the cone or the cube in the middle. I think they both present interesting challenges. Like the cube is, if you don't touch it and grab it right away, that thing could really pop away on you. And so,
or it could just pop.
There you go. Yeah, we unzippered a cube in 2018 one time during a match. Like, oops.
Oh yeah.
So I think as you're getting up in ability, it's like, let me do level 1, level 2, and then if you pick one, I mean, there's more cone available spots upper levels, and so as you go up, you're going to need to start doing cones more.
Which I think brings up my next question. There is where to score, and again, a lot of this has to do with your team's capabilities. Of all right, are we happy with being just only scoring level 1? But strategically, setting those capabilities aside, is there strategic advantage to being able to score low, medium, or high, or any combination of the 3?
I think if you're able to score both medium and low, you can be quite dangerous. I'm thinking of, and I know we're going to talk about robots this reminds us of, but I'm thinking of what Jackadabot 2910 did in 2019, where they just were a really stupid fast robot that could only score low, and they would still like light people up when it came to their scoring output. And unlike when they did it, you can actually still score the ranking point by only scoring low and mid. You don't need to go high to rank, which I think is going to be, if you're able to do mid and low really, really fast, you're going to be able to do well in this game.
Yeah.
Perfect point. I agree with you there. So that you got a trade-off. So if you're going to go high, you better know why. You don't trade off speed, because the further you're reaching, the more wobble you got in your mechanism, and you've got to deal with that in your design. So that's the first hot take, is you better be ready for wobble, especially if you're cone high. So fast is good for ranking. Fast is good for ranking is the bottom line.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of like last year, just mashing the low goal in order to crank that ranking point out. It's your same thing here, that there's a big advantage just scoring the low, easy points, right, and so making sure you lock up that ranking point.
Right. So for an alliance to win the ranking point, you still have to have at least one cone person that can do mid. You got to have one cone person that can do mid, period.
And again, the beauty here is that you're not, like, especially compared to last year, you're not sacrificing huge points by going low and mid and just ignoring the high. You're sacrificing a few points, but you're still getting full bonus points for developing a whole link in each of those low and mid sections. So I think there's a whole lot of value to just being a low and mid scorer.
Right. And if you're doing low and mid, right, there's a 33% increase in your score by just being able to go mid, right? So the same amount of time, you basically increased it, right? And when you go from mid to high, that's a 50% increase. So there is value for going high, but with great rewards comes great risk, right?
That's really
And complexity, because you're spending more time. You have to spend more time designing the robot to do that, depending on how well developed your team's design skills are. But yeah, the time it takes to score on that level. But I think the other thing to account for here is that there's 27 scoring opportunities, which is, I think if you look at last year, you're like, oh, that's not that many. But if you look back at cycling games like 2017, where you have to do full field cycles, it takes time in order to get back and forth across the field, unless you get super lucky and are picking up cones and cubes off the floor because your teammates have shuttled them over for you, or that the opponents happen to drop them there. But it's going to be a lot harder for teams to crank out as many game pieces. So if you still have 18 scoring opportunities for low and mid, there's plenty of scoring there for a whole alliance to focus on, or even especially if you're just the one robot cranking out, that you're not gonna run into a ceiling there.
And I think something that's really big is that the link bonus being there really, really benefits the low and mid strategy, because you can make up for the point gap with just your link bonuses, because it's going to be so much faster that even if the team will get more points from just placing their things, the fact that you have more links will more than make up for it.
And
Right.
and there will be the situations where the other team might score more game pieces, but in that situation you're likely going to wind up losing anyway. So it's, well, okay. So what are we arguing about here? I think there's been huge ranking opportunities for those lower level scorers, which I think is, and they just have just as likely to get that charging station ranking point. So if you're ranking high because you're good at low and mid, or some bots will even get by with just low and good teammates, but you can rank really high and hopefully pick then one of the better robots at the event to team up with. So there's not a huge cap, I think, on ranking this year associated with whether you're scoring low, mid, or high.
Right. So the GDC did a great job with this, because there's been complaints in the past about rank points not having a point value, when this one has a point value both in playoffs and qualifications. Now you want to play fast to get the rank point, but you also get points, and it didn't matter if you're playoffs or qualifications, you still get 5 points. So that was a nice touch.
The one thing that's be interesting as far as an alliance goes, you're going to be coming down to the last cycle or two, and you may have an agreement in place with your teammates on who's placing where, but there's going to be that last cycle or two. You're going to want to make sure that, hey, we have one spot open for a link. Don't start a new one. Come start filling ours up first before we start a second link that we can't fill.
Yeah, those driver stations are going to be busy for the communication.
That's why I said
drive
this
coaches.
is, at first glance, it's like, is that it? Because it's low, you're reaching out hard. But then when you start thinking about what the coaching and the interaction between the teams is, it is going to be fun. That's going to be a lot of fun. And by fun, I mean, oh no.
I think there is going to be more than one match that is decided because a team will grab the wrong game piece to be the last game piece scored in the match.
Yes.
Which reminds me of 2011 as well, because you had the unique game piece shapes, and all right, I need a triangle in order to finish out this logo. That it'll be a similar instance. I wish I'd be curious a little bit on like reducing the amount of the types of game pieces, or the game pieces in general available, to like more finely ride that. Is game piece starvation an option? Just to say, all right, those guys need cones or those guys need cubes. I'm going to stop whoever's getting. I'm going to slow down that traffic.
Oh, so you're not going to starve the game piece. You're going to starve that robot.
Yeah, you're going to say, all right, that's the robot that's carrying cubes. I'm slowing that one down because that's going to chokehold their their
Okay.
total
Links.
output for
interesting.
links. Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
So curious strategies developing here. All right.
If you are that aware of what's going on around you, I applaud you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, the other alliance needs one more cube on the mid. I'm going to stop that guy. He's got a cube. Oh, wow. That's
Well, it's a lot
I
easier to
think-
see their
smart
scoring
defender.
grid than your own. So
That's a very smart defender.
I think
So,
Kellen,
Kellen,
to boil this down, teams bonus points into awareness. If you play Dungeons and Dragons, that's a thingy.
let's
What we
move
got
into
next,
some
Kellen?
ranking point discussion. I think
Ranking point? Okay.
I think where we should have started in the grand scheme of things, given their importance. But we've gotten there. We've gotten the ranking points. But so obviously there's the typical 4 ranking point structure that you can get 2 for a win or 1 for a tie should that circumstance arise. But you then get 2 additional bonus points or ranking point options for, again, filling out either 5 total links or 4 should you fill out have 3 game pieces in the cooperation zone. So that's still what you're still talking, at least 12 game pieces in order to get that RP, which I think is comparable to like the Rocket in 2019. You needed 12 game pieces to fill that out. So a comparable game piece at a minimum, you would need to do that. But otherwise, the other ranking point is then 26 charging point stations earned by your alliance, which again, as we mentioned earlier, you can at least make a dent in that during autonomous mode, which I think is a really cool mix up. So as I stated, I think earlier, that there's no real new twists in this game. I've already eaten my words a little bit on that one. But yeah, what are your thoughts on ranking points? Do you think one's easier than the other? What do you think its difficulty is?
Oh yeah. Again, we're talking peach tree. Yeah. So the I guess the climbing or whatever, the driving rank point.
One requires a
easier to get
drivetrain.
than the 5 links.
Yeah, one requires a drivetrain. That's all you need. A pancake with a driver can do a level.
Well, no, you
by
need more than
himself,
that.
right?
You need more than that. Well, I'll get to that in a minute, but I think it's easier in general. But I wanted to go back to the specific cone, the link rank point, and the comment made earlier about the cooperation area. And so I think we were going down the path of, do you play cooperation or do you not? Right? Is that what somebody wanted to discuss?
I think that's a really good discussion.
All right. So yeah, we talked about this today. So in Peachtree, right? So I guess the scenario would be, you've got 2 bots capable of cycling 15 game elements. So they can do the 5 without the cooperation. And you're playing against one robot that doesn't have much support, and you think they might be able to squeeze the 4, but they definitely can't do 5. So do you deny that other guy on the other side of the field to get to that level? That again requires 2 things. Can the 2 robots do the 15 in Peachtree? Right. Yeah. In California, yes. Yeah, the Hunini port or whatever the heck that thing is. You'll see that all the time. They'll do the 15 game pieces, easy peasy. In our game, how many people or how many 2 robot combinations we will have in a qualification match that can put up 15 game pieces? Because you have to do it on the mid level. Period. I mean, you can go high, but you got to go at least to the mid level and both objects.
Right. So regardless of, so the assumption, the given for this question is they can do 5, right? Mm-hmm. And if the other alliance doesn't really impact me or doesn't, I don't have a problem with it, right? But if I'm trying to be the one, a 1, 2, or 3, I'm trying to rank to be in a good picking position, and on the other side of the field is another team doing the same thing, and then I'm gonna be like, if I can do that, I'm okay with not doing the cooperation stuff, because I'm trying to advance our team, as far as we can. I wouldn't do it just because, right? If it doesn't impact the other side, doesn't impact me with the other side, then I don't care.
Right. So
I think it will
go ahead, Tom.
come down to a decision matrix where you have, if I need the cooperation bonus to rank point, yes, we do it. You know, and it doesn't matter if they need it or not. But if the situation arises where I don't need it and they do, I think it becomes beneficial, especially if the person on the other side of the match is someone who is going to be racing you for a one or for a first pick. I think in that situation, it will become a very good idea to go, okay, we don't need this ranking point, or we don't need this bonus to get the ranking point. But they do, so let's not do it.
Yeah.
I think
it's generally helpful if both teams in the match. If you have one heavy hitter on both alliances, if you both get it, you both stay even to each other, but you both improve compared to the rest of the field.
Correct.
You're kind of shooting each other in the foot if you say no, that you're both sinking in comparison. Again, I think 15 game pieces is a lot more than we're thinking it is at this point, and I don't think it's going to happen very routinely. But I think it's an interesting conversation because, again, it's all boats within that match rise or sink, not again compared to the field. So
I think that for you to have the ability to do 5 on your own alliance, you're going to have 2 robots that are contenders for the state.
Yes,
right?
That's right.
Mm-hmm. And for the other team, it's like, so the chances of you getting that combination together randomly at a district qualifier, right? Early on, everybody's going to have a problem, right? It's going to be later, when you get.
I don't think this is a problem until you get to champs. This is not even a conversation.
I think
at most events.
I'm going to have us all remember this very show last year, where we all said no one was going to solo the cargo RP. We all said it. We said it wasn't going to happen. You know what happened in the first match that 1771 played? They soloed the cargo RP. I am not going to make that mistake again.
Do you have proof? Do you have proof that we said that, Thomas? Unless you do, I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay. Yeah, but no, it's not a matter of.
We said it wasn't going to happen, and it happened. We cannot make the same mistake again. Let's not.
We've adjusted our prognostication skills. We're better this year. Yes.
So
I am not
you have
claiming
to be really confident you can get 5.
I'm not saying that teams won't routinely get the 5. It's in a scenario where you're saying you're trying to deny somebody, a strong team that doesn't have support, and they could probably get the 4. Now, could a single team? I guess what you're saying, Thomas, can a single team get 5?
I think we would be fools to say that the upper echelon of teams in the Peachtree District will not be at some point towards the end of the year be able to at least with somewhat routine
solo the 5 links.
do it quite fast.
15 game pieces in a match for a single robot. Is that what you're saying, Thomas?
I sat there and I watched 1771 score. I think they were scoring at one point. They scored 25 balls in one match. Like
Correct.
I am not
cycle
how
time.
How far did they have to cycle?
I will say this.
The cycle time is different, but it is way different. But I personally think teams, especially with how crazy Swerve is going to be this year, with you just going to be able to straight shot and how hard defense is going to be. I think it is going to be something that the upper echelon of teams will be able to do.
What was world-class cycling in 2017? What was world-class cycling for Gears?
I think it was 10.
10.
All right. So
and that was much easier.
Okay, it is, but
here's
the thing. In this game, you could do your cycling, and you could, if you just have somebody can do a low and there's not much they can do, right? They can push the cubes over there such that you could just, when you get done with what you're doing, you can start taking the ones in your in your
You're
zone.
talking about quickening the cycle time with good part. That's I get that.
Right. So
And-
there are
and then-
tricks you can do that where I think you could it is possible. I'm not saying you're gonna get like 3 teams, but I think it is possible for them to
And-
do that.
I think what we're forgetting is it's not your long cycle time the entire match. You start the match with 8 game pieces on the field where you're not having to go to the loading zone. Yes, those are contested, right?
Mhm.
But your first couple cycles don't necessarily need to be going all the way across the field and back. They can be really fast.
So
I
think someone in Peachtree will solo 15?
Yes. I
Okay.
think more than one team in Peachtree will solo 15.
I think you're crazy, Thomas, but we're gonna hold you to it at the end of the show in the waiver section.
All right.
All right.
Challenge accepted. I want to be that one team. But I don't think we will be, but I would like to be that one team.
I'm willing to accept it is possible. I'm not sure
No, in Peachtree.
how close we will get. If you
Okay.
think about it, 1771,
I know.
right?
I know.
They soloed a cargo, but they were going into worlds on Fun's top 25 ranking, 22 in the world, right? So that's not the typical Peachtree performance.
Top 25 is a popularity contest, Brian. But that has
They
no
still showed up at
indication of
Worlds
robot
too, right?
performance.
So
254 somehow is always top 10 no matter what. Listen.
For
Okay.
good reason, Thomas.
Okay.
Yeah.
But, all right. So I think, yes, a couple of teams might be on the verge of the 15. All right. I'll grant you that. All right. And we'll just leave it at that. But I don't.
they may not do all
It's
15
going to be
themselves.
hard. That's going to be really, 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 really hard unless
there's still
unless you
two-
just try to do the bottom and
Right.
Oh.
You can still get help from, about doing 2 or 3 each, right? I'm not sure
Yeah.
they do 15
No, I'm
by
talking about
themselves.
solo. We said solo.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
said solo.
was-
All right.
Teams will do
He
15.
said solo. No
I
support.
said solo.
No
No
support.
support.
Nobody pushing
No help.
stuff my way. No, no solo.
All right.
Solo is solo.
All right. So I think we're all
We're
on the
done with
same board in the general ranking point discussion is that the charging station ranking point is heads and shoulders easier. I think it'll still be fun to watch for teams at the last
Well-
second. What I do think is fun is that the bridge never has to be balanced in the match, and you can still get the ranking point.
No, well,
Right.
yeah,
The-
technically yes, but
So if
Physically,
you're on
no.
the bridge in Auton and not balanced with one robot, you still get the 8 points or whatever it is. And
Alright.
then at end game, if you have 2 robots on, I think you can even do it with 2 robots.
You have
right?
to have 3.
Or do you have to have
to have 3
All right.
robots unbalanced.
right.
Yeah,
so,
3 robots unbalanced. You still get the ranking point. You know?
Right. So
But-
the one thing that's really important that I look at that, the most important thing to do during Auton
it's
is
balanced.
get at least a dock. If you don't get a dock, you
You're
have to
done.
do a triple level or triple engage to get it, right?
Yeah.
As long as you get the dock, you could do a double, or if you do a dock or engage, it's still a double level, and
Which
that's
makes it a whole lot easier, number 1, to get that ranking point because you only need 2 robots coordinating instead of 3.
Yep.
But you also get a 3rd robot then that's at free will to keep scoring game pieces or go ahead and join on the charging platform and get more points than you otherwise would be able to.
Yeah.
Just because you can balance at the beginning and end and still get points for your.
The other
your
thing
team.
that's interesting is if you move and go and do a level drive as an Auton, you don't get the cross the line, but you have to actually go outside and then to get those extra 2 points.
It's 3, but
3 points, yeah.
the most important, the absolute, if everybody in Peachtree listen to this, if you're going to do anything in Auton or you're going to work on Auton, you're going to push your team, drive onto that platform and balance.
Yep.
You need a drivetrain and you need some software. Ready, set, play. It's available to anybody, including a kit bot.
If
Mhm.
as someone who will be, helping quite prevalently with the line selection process for our team, if I see a 3rd bot that can level in autonomous, that'd be a very nice thing to have because then that frees other teams up to do maybe a multi-game piece ton or something crazy like that.
So everybody have that one in your pocket and don't worry about extra game pieces at first. Do this one first. And you are golden. I am telling you, this is my prediction.
If you want to get your 40 district points, do that.
Yes.
Priorities. All right. So ranking points, obviously big deal. Again, we should have talked about them first. Priorities. Make sure you stick to them. I think it's easy to lose track of that throughout the season, but make sure those priorities are driving your design decisions and your and obviously match strategy decisions when we get there. David, you had made a note that outside of ranking points, one of your favorite things to talk about is kind of those tiebreakers. For either the ranking tiebreaker outside of what's the tiebreaker past ranking points, and then what are kind of the tiebreakers also in elimination matches. I know we made some allusion to this earlier, but what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, my thoughts are I'm a ranking point junkie. I want ranking. Yeah, winning the match obviously gives you ranking points, but I don't care if I win by 1 or 100. It doesn't matter. But it then does matter because the 100 points is the tiebreaker. So the first tiebreaker, like last year, is average points scored for ranking. So, and to go beyond that one would be a tiebreaker would be really weird. Probably not going to happen because it's average, down to the
which I'm a big fan of that. Just that it's not some weird component of the game that you happen to have more hanging points than the other guys.
Right. Yeah, it's usually been like hanging points or autonomous points was the tiebreaker. Now it's just total match average, what I think is a better representation that doesn't force you into either the first or the last part of the game. Right.
And then thoughts on for elimination matches, the tiebreaker, I believe, is then cumulative tech fouls.
And then the charge station points.
So cumulative tech fouls, does that mean if I get 5 tech fouls in the first elims match, that those will apply to a tiebreaker in finals? Or is that cumulative tech fouls for just that round? Because I think it'll be a very interesting game where now you have to track, okay, I'm at 3 tech fouls this elims. Where is everyone else at?
That's a great catch. I thought that was just for that game, but if it's total that you're dragging along with you, which makes you behave good the entire playoff, I bet your interpretation is probably right.
Yeah, it reads as cumulative tech foul points due to opponent rule violations.
So don't be committing tank fouls, boys.
Because you don't carry them with you? Wow, I didn't read that in there, but now I'm reading it in there. Thanks for that. That's good.
You're welcome.
You can't unfear that now.
That's why we're here to help teach you, right?
I'm going to lose elims because I score a tech foul in the first ever match.
I think it would be cumulative in playoff, right?
Like first ever playoff
not the robot.
First ever playoff match, you score a tech foul, you win anyways, and then all of a sudden you're tied in finals match 3, and then you lose. That
I do think chances of tying in this game are pretty slim for the amount of points.
Right, the point
items scored. So I think the chances are pretty slim, but now that we're all thinking about it,
that is a nightmare.
But so moving on a little bit, something else is then for district points. We have a little bit of change up due to moving to the double elimination structure. Brian, any thoughts on how district points have changed a little bit with that new structure?
Yeah, so best 2 out of 3. If you won your best 2 out of 3 advantage, you got some points, right? And with the double elimination, there's not that, and they weren't sure where you can give points per wins and stuff. But it turns out what they've done is sort of balanced it such that it reflects the same weight overall for the district points as it did before. So previously, since we had 40 to 45, because this change still maintained that weighting, we were able to look and say, yes, so 40 to 45 is going to be the same. The little tweak now is because there's a head-to-head play between the 3 and 4 bots, there's a little bump there if you beat the 4 bot, but it's nothing major.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If you look at it, the way it would happen is the 4 semifinalists would all get district points. The 2 teams that lose in semis would get 10 points each. So the only thing they did is they took 3 points away from the 4th place team and gave it to the 3rd place team. I think that is a good thing. I think it's good to reward the team that made it farther. Another interesting thing is that if you have a 4th bot, that 4th bot will get percentage of point. Every robot on your alliance gets a percentage of points based on the percentage of matches they played. So that can become really interesting with if you have to call a backup bot, how those district points can get allocated. But I think it does end up being a very, very beneficial and good thing.
The thing that I'm happy to see was on the PCH Mentor Slack, there was a vigorous debate on what would be acceptable behavior if they did certain things with the district points in playoffs, and can you play games with that? Right now, no. It's there's basically win your matches, advance. There's really no advantage in trying to play games in elims, which is good.
Yeah, I think the danger and that a lot of people that at least that I saw and a lot of people feared would happen was there was a potential with double elims where you could, if they did a points by win model, where you got, let's say 5 points for each match you win, you could win more matches by going into the losers bracket. So I think taking away that carrot is just I'm very happy that First made it this way. And I'm also very happy with how they did it, how they did the allocation for the potential with now you can hot swap your backup bot. The backup bots are no longer permanently in there. I do like the fact that how it's, the manipulation alliance captain might be able to do is no longer there because you still get a percentage of total points instead of only getting points for each round you go to.
Yeah. That's a minor thing, right? That's a really narrow thing, and that may still be partially available. And yes, it is still there, but I don't think there's a real incentive for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit, I guess, about some other, strategical decisions that we've got about this time in the season or within the next week or two as teams kind of settle on, all right, what do we want our robot to do in this game? What are some of your thoughts on what the average PCH team should be looking at doing for what they might be asked of as an alliance contributor to say, all right, what can your robot do? How can you be most useful as an average PCH robot? And then what might you expect for a minimally competitive team to focus on for some skill sets for strategy in this game?
I think for the minimal concept team, if you're able to drive fast and then score across the low and get 9 game pieces in, I think that'd be a very, very, very good minimal concept team with a very fast drivetrain. So you're able to play good defense, and then you're also able to score when you need to go on offense those 9 points and get those 3 links and balance.
You just said that the minimum MCC is 9 cycles.
I think he's just saying there's 9 opportunities open for that kind of a team to score.
That might explain why he thinks they can do 15. I'm like, boy, I think I think there's gonna be a way for you to do both game pieces. If you pick one, you could always push the other one into the low goal, right? If you don't have to manipulate it. I think every bot will probably figure out a way to do something simple, like they even did a simple climb last year with the arms going up.
That climb was terrible.
But it's still there, right? I think you'll find if you're in that competitive, top 30 to 40% of teams trying to up their game and play the full game, I think that's where you'll be at. I think, as we talked about before, the biggest thing is being able to do the charging station, right? That's important. It's a must have in Auton for them to go for that ranking point, and that's the easier one. If you fill that role, it's great. Even if you don't get the RP and elims, if you place one cube for whatever points it is in Auton, you get one extra point. If you place that cube in Teleop, you lose 1 point. But if you dock in Auton, you get 2 points extra, right? So the value add for that one action on the dock or level in Auton is really important.
And there's huge value if other robots out there that are in a picking position.
Yep.
It's a huge skill set to be able to say, all right, this robot can do this. That's the kind of robot I want as an alliance partner.
Yep.
Okay. So minimum competitive robot, right? So I think it would not be a stretch to score your preload in the hybrid area, which is basically drop it off the back of your robot. You can line right up to it, put the bumper against it, and just go blop.
Yep.
Then, like Brian said, drive up on that platform would be a stretch goal for you, but I think it's a very viable stretch goal. It is a programming task, and it's worth trying. The worst case you do is you go to the other side, you plop it, and you drive out, and you get your 3 points, and you're done. Right? I believe. I'm debating back and forth on this, but I believe at least being able to pick up a cube off the floor enough. I mean, they didn't have to get it into your robot, but then you just pick it up to get it down the field and score it low. And if you can do that, could you also pick up a cone on the floor and do the same? Do you want to play with loading from the top? I'm not convinced by that. But
I think loading from the top is if you build the capabilities from load from the top, you're already building the capabilities to score high. And I just don't. If you're a low resource team, don't do either.
I see a different thing. Loading from the top. If you look at every bot in 20.
Oh, like in 2018,
2018, every bot loaded from the top and dumped. Just had a scoop, pick it up, bam, pick up, bam. So that I just don't know if I want the minimum competitive bot would just be a top load dumper or a scoop off the floor dumper, but it's one of the two, and it might be a little bit of both.
So huge things to focus on there are where you're getting your game pieces at and how you intend to just drop them off in the scoring zone. So focus on those basic things.
Yeah, to me, a minimum competitive robot would not reach to mid-level.
Right, and it's going back to the reach, take it into your grab or whatever you're using, right, from the human player station, and then go over the top and just drop it on. That works for the cube, right? But the cones are really tough, right? So,
a bucket's a bucket.
Yeah, but you got to line. I guess, right? You can do that for level 2, and
not level 2.
Why are you touching level 2? We're not.
I said the minimum
just level 1.
It's only level 1.
Well, I'm just saying, if you have an arm that does this, the arm could also be 12 inches longer.
Nope, you're stretching things, Brian. Don't just score on the floor.
So a minimum competitive robot can score in the hybrid and can shuttle game pieces for the alliance and can play very well with the charge station. That's the tasks. That's what I consider minimum competitive, period.
And I think this year, last year I think was a driver's game, but I think this year is also a really big driver's game, with going the full length of the field. So get your robot done as soon as possible and drive the bejesus out of it.
Correct.
That it, like, every year I will say this, and every year I will say it's more important than the year before. because it is. If you have the choice between a week of extra design time to get that one extra point or that week of extra drive practice, take that extra drive practice.
Yeah.
It is worth it.
You've got
And-
plenty of options to score low.
Yep.
Use them. Don't waste your time going mid.
Yeah, and make sure your drive coach is very well practiced on the communication. Obviously, you can score whatever game pieces you want in those low stations, but you need to communicate traffic on who's going where when, and then that balancing act at the end of the match. So make sure that person is ready to communicate.
And then be ready to not only communicate well with your team, but got people who are really good at communicating across different teams, and have coordinated scrimmages would actually be something that is very, very worthwhile here. If you can get to a DE field and practice that communication with other teams, and even if that's not possible, have simulated scrimmages where you have three that you have just you sequester a separate a person to act as a different drive team just to practice that type of coordination and communication. I think will be very, very necessary. And
I'm gonna make a plug for. I have not myself used it, but I've for use in the past, and I think this year just the same. I'm gonna plug the XRC simulator as a good match simulation tool. That's essentially just a video game of the first robotics game, but it's a huge tool on understanding. All right, what are cycle times going to be? How do I handle traffic? How do I coordinate with teammates to get into my spot? So I believe there's multiplayer options in which you can work with teammates or opponents the like to get all that practice. Even right now, before you don't have a robot together, you can still get practice and start building those mental concepts of, all right, this is how the match is going to work, and this is what I need to be ready to do in a match to communicate. So practice. The
other interesting thing I'm curious to see how it evolves over the season. The swerve revolution is sort of come around, right? So there'll be a lot more swerve bots. There's been the introduction of the April tags, and their support in Limelight is there. And I think I'm interesting to see the top 20, 25 teams. I think you're going to start seeing a software, a software race there, right? Because unlike like last year, right? Other than aiming and shooting, there's heavy defense. There's a lot of protected zones now where automation can start helping really boost teams' performance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've got a lot of playing around to do with that. Some of that new technology for the April tag stuff, because I think there's a lot of alignment benefits you can get out of it.
Right.
All right, we're gonna move into some design decisions. Again, a little bit of strategy, but getting into a little bit of technical as well. But how to make some good design choices for your robot. But we're looking at goal setting for your teams. Make sure your team is sitting down and having a conversation about what your team's goals are for the season. It's all right. Do I just want our robot to be functioning every single match? Do I want to make eliminations at my district events? Do I want to be an alliance captain? Do I want to qualify for state or district championships or world champs? Setting those goals has to be and marking down those goals. Those goals are the drivers, or should be the drivers, for all of your technical decisions and your strategy decisions. Brian, I know David, I know Thomas. All these people all have a keen sense of, all right, how are we making technical decisions based on what our goals are for the season? We should not be doing X, Y, and Z because they do not immediately serve our goals 1, 2, and 3. Why would we focus our time on this stuff when they don't serve these goals? So make sure you're setting goals for your team and making sure your design decisions serve those goals immediately. I think some other design decision choices here I think is good reflection. is some historical games that we think mimic
So,
or
Kellen?
yeah.
Before you go on to that, so goal setting is one thing, right? Doing the right thing at the right time, right? But the other thing is drive practice is key. So that means make sure you have a plan for the season, right? If you are in week 3 and you're like, I'm supposed to have all these things done, and you're like, we're not done, we'll just do them next week, you're not going to get that drive time. Make sure your goals can follow a schedule and maintain that schedule, because that's going to serve you better than trying to get something really cool built that you can't drive.
And be ready to shed some of those goals should your planning not be going to plan. Don't maintain high goals if you're not meeting your plan targets. Be ready to shed certain things and focus on those key goals that you're looking at.
Yeah, and I think that's something that is going to be very important. Is something that we do at Auto is we have a tier list of goals of ranked in difficulty of like what is our very minimum goal, what is our very high level goal, and as we go through this season, we operate to try and do things at a high level goal. But as the season goes through and we have to cut stuff, we start cutting the high goals. Don't cut the low goals out. If you're going to have to sacrifice something, like we've said earlier, sacrifice that really high level thing so you can consistently do the low level thing. You know, it's like walk before you run, crawl before you walk, roll before you crawl. Is very important. I think a good example of this is if in 2019, the Atomic Robotic Dogs, they went all in on, okay, we're going to score. I think the first game piece they scored was a hatch on the highest level of the rocket, but they couldn't really do anything with any consistency. You're going to want to do, if you want to be competitive and go far, aim to do the little thing, the low things consistently before you can do the high things at all.
Mm-hmm. So David, do you have something for?
Yeah, on the goal setting and the prioritization. We are going to do our prioritization tomorrow night. We usually have it done today, but we got a whole bunch of new students, so we're taking them through the process. So go down through it and make sure on that list. What we do is we list everything that can happen. Pick up a game piece, score it here, do that, blah blah. It's like 45 things. Say no to a lot. I'm not going to do that. And it needs to be a strategic decision, right? There are some wild ones, like if you want to pick up a come out of the floor, do you want to pick it off only if it's standing up, or do you want to pick it up in any orientation? Those are two different tasks. List them and say yes or no to them. And make sure you say plenty of no's.
Yeah. Yep. I think that's one of the hardest things to do on a yearly basis is, this is so shiny. They're telling teams they need to do this in order to be good. It's really hard to avoid those pitfalls to say, well, in 2016 there's a high goal and it's worth more points. Why aren't we need to shoot up there when teams made a lot of money on just only scoring low goals, and a lot of them. But it's really hard to make those scaled back decisions that, again, might be the right call for your team. So take some time and think those things over and make the right call for your team.
I think teams to look at, and if you're looking at historical, if you look at Crush in 2017, Wildcats in 2017, 4188 in 2017, these are all teams that made Einstein by just saying, okay, we're going to ignore the shiny fuel thing and only score gears. Like it is not the history of first is littered with examples of teams who went highly specialized on the low difficulty game piece or low difficulty strategy, but ended up winning anyways. So it is not inherently a bad thing to have to say no. And there is no team in the history of first that has been able to do everything possible for a given game. 254 hasn't done it. 2056 hasn't done it.
What?
Well,
I think those teams have done it.
No, there's always been one thing, like 254 in 2018, the best single season a robot has ever done. They said no to picking up 2 robots at the same time. So yes, they could still do a lot of the things, but they couldn't do everything possible.
They could.
So
They did everything
The
in the game.
goal was the rank point, and that's how they got it.
yeah,
Right.
I'm not saying that teams haven't maximized their output. I'm just saying there are some capabilities that even the big boys leave off the table. So it's not a bad thing that if you have to do that as well.
Okay.
Gotcha. Another point we get on the agenda here is any historical games or strategies within games that you think relate specifically to Charged Up.
So the one thing I'll mention is in 2017, the gear drop at the human player station. Make sure coaches and drivers have good communication and understand the process with the human player. There are several times where a robot came to line up to get a gear. They are across the field. They thought they weren't lined up. The human player said, and dropped the gear, and the robot backed away, right? So if you're getting a cone and you're not doing floor pickup because that's what your goals are, that miscommunication can cost you that game piece that you have to clear out of the way now to do it. So work on that, and that will be very helpful for you.
Gotcha. Yeah, good point there.
Yeah, games that there's a couple of different games this reminds me of, right? So one of our mentors said, "Hey, that looks like kind of a logo motion kind of thing because there's a pattern to it. There's rows, there's the links, and all that fun stuff." The difference is, in that game, in my opinion, is the center of the field had a choke point, and therefore 2 offense, 1 defense was the dynamic. From a cycling standpoint, I'm thinking this is going to be a lot more fun with a lot more options, and it's going to be a little bit more like 2016, as odd as that sounds. So on Einstein in 2016, some of the most exciting matches I've seen in Einstein play, there was triple offense. There was the classic 2 offense, 1 defense, and then there was the 2 offense with a support bot shuttling game pieces. I think you will see all 3 of those on Einstein this year with this game. That's my hot take.
Yeah, I think, again, relating to my earlier comment for the traffic and patterns, I think that's where 2011 is comparable. I think again, it's a little bit different in that the human player that year was pretty much able to chuck the game piece over half the field in order for your robot to pick it up. But like alignment-wise, you're still looking at the same thing. So depending on the type of drivetrain your robot has, you have to make the choice of, all right, am I going to drive forward, pick up game piece, and then turn around and score it? Or am I going to drive further than the game piece, pick it up, and then come back and score it and just do that pattern every time? Or do I have a turret on my robot? Or do I have a swerve drive that's able to kind of reorient and focus on how, number one, how you're communicating with alliance partners and getting in and out of that scoring position, but also how your driving pattern is going to best facilitate that cycle time and getting back and forth in the right position at the right time in order to score your game piece a little bit more seamlessly than otherwise you would be able to. But. All right. Any other comments, I guess, on other historical designs that might fit? Obviously, there's like bridge balancing in 2012. That's a little bit different.
Look at bridge balancing in 2012. And in that regard, it's not the balancing, or the balancing dynamic is similar but different. But the assist dynamics they had with the stingers and all that fun stuff, that's already been talked about a lot in the communities.
So one of the things to find out is if you go on to the charge station, especially endgame, right? And you turn your wheels off and you shut your motors down, put them in brake mode, and you tilt that platform, can you stay in position, right? Because that's going to be very valuable so that if other teams that come on and they try to balance it, if your robot's moving, it makes it harder. If software to help with auto balancing, and that really messes things up. So just being able to stop and stick will be important.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
that's our first test this week. Yes, take last year's robot, see if we can stick on a platform, and the polycarb part too.
Yeah, it makes it a lot easier to not have like a physical break. I know the easiest trick is to get up centered and just turn sideways. Obviously, that requires the room to do that, and doing it while still balancing the charging station. Just so it's a little bit more technical, but the easiest design-wise option that you don't have to have something extra on your robot for it.
Right.
But
and all the swervy people out there, you can look at what 1717 did in 2012.
yeah, you can just lock your tires
Well, they
so you
locked the
don't roll.
tires. Yeah, it was
Yep.
a brilliant robot.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorites.
All
fun
right.
one to
Does that
watch.
mean we're ready to make wagers? I know I've already said quite a spicy one at the beginning of this, towards the middle of this. But just to review the 2022 full season wagers, we were quite pessimistic when it came to how many cargo will a PCH team score with the match. I think Kellen was the closest in 8 with he said the maximum was going to be 18. We should have pounded that over. And then how many
I forget what the actual record was, but yeah, I think it was pretty well blown out of the water.
Well, strangely enough, Walton and Mechanism and 1771, they were putting in around 20 and 25, that range, right? But the vast majority, everybody else, 15 and 18 would have been really great.
Yeah, I think we ended up really getting the averages nailed down. I think it was just the maximum ended up being crazy high. And then, how many PCH teams will have a traversal climb? I said that 6 teams would do it, but 0 should have done it. And I was right. I think a little bit more teams did the traversal climb, but I was still right with 0 teams should have done it. And I will take that to my grave.
And I will disagree with you entirely.
So just to wrap up on that, there were 7 bots at District Championship last year that did a traversal climb. Now, only one of them could break after 30 seconds. Everybody else was breaking 30 to 50 seconds. And that sort of goes to David's point, which is if you're a specialty bot and that's what you're trying to do, that's a big value add. But if you're trying to play the shooting game and everything, yes, you should probably have left that alone.
Yeah. Which I think I'll morph that a little bit, that wager last year. The teams that did traversal to the level they needed to in order to be truly competitive doing it. And I think in that case, around 2 teams did it well enough at it. Brian said, break.
So you're giving
let me clarify something, Brian, though. You said 7 bots at district champs could traverse. Is that right? 7
yes.
total?
Mm-hmm.
And how many of those were in the playoffs?
No, hold on. Hold on. I misspoke. These were only playoff bots.
Pardon?
So I don't know if there were traversal.
You think there were traversal bots that were not picked?
Bot.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
Yes,
there were.
Okay. I think there were a couple that were not picked,
like some of the slower ones. Okay, so if you're going to pick a skill, like we said earlier in the minimum competitive concept, if you're going to pick a skill, be good at it. And if you're going to do minimum competitive this year, don't go middle level. Just be good at low, because plenty of places will score.
So for our wagers in 2023, the first one is, what is the maximum number of game pieces that a single PCH robot will score this season? I'll go first since I've already been quite aggressive in this one.
Hold on, I have a clarification question. In teleop only?
No, he says total game pieces scored.
Total game pieces. Match total. I have already
wrote this
been
question,
on record.
so I should have thought about it a little bit more.
No.
I have already been on record. I think a team is already going to do 15, and if that means they can do 15, I think they can do more than 15. 16 game pieces will be scored by a single team.
Okay, so
this season.
So we're wagering on a maximum single game, not average.
Max, what is the best robot going to be able to do in their best match?
In Peachtree. Okay.
In Peachtree.
Anybody else got an answer to that? I'm pondering.
Kellen, you are next on the list.
I think the interesting thing here really winds up turning into, how well are those top robots able to snipe game pieces off of the floor and not having to do full cycles? In which case, I think there's going to be some more fortunate matches, likely qualification matches, where teams are going to get those opportunities.
Quick clarification. Does it count as a single robot scoring if a team has been fair, only one team scoring the game pieces, but another team is ferrying it? Because I think that's an important clarification there. Because if you count that, that can go really high.
Nope, I think it's that they did the full cycle, be it short or long.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh, so you're not counting ferrying, Brian?
Wait.
Whoa,
That's a little different.
Right? Because, yes, no ferrying. Basically, that they do themselves.
Well, who's going to do all the work to actually figure out what the answer to this question is then? They're watching every single
Well, we find the one with the most cargo, we then look.
Okay. So most game pieces scored by a single robot, I'm going to say 12.
All right.
And I don't think it's
at
going to matter.
12.
I'm at 12. And that would include shuttling.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I think even with shuttling, I think I'm gonna put my number at 11.
All right, Brian, you are on the clock.
We should really work out a system like this blind, so we don't get each other's answers to work out.
15.
Ooh,
Oh.
So now, Thomas, you went 16 or 15? Wait a minute. What'd you
I
do?
went 16. I
Okay,
went 16.
all right.
As I said, I believe there's a strategy.
What is this? The Price is Right?
Is this are you
$1, Bob?
Are you saying with shuttling or no shuttling?
No.
Mr. Shuttling doesn't count.
I think 15 no shuttling is possible.
Whoa. Okay. I like it.
I agree with you. I agree with you because I think that I said that really early. I think a 16 no shuttle is possible. Okay. Second question: will there be a full scoring grid in a 2023 match? That means every single scoring opportunity will happen. Not counting, and just to clarify, I know Kellen wrote this, but I'm going to add this clarification. All just game pieces only. So full game pieces, all the game pieces. So if you sacrifice the no balance, but get full game pieces, will every single game piece spot be filled in a PCH match this season?
In a PCH match, okay.
Yeah, in a PCH match.
I'll go first. No.
Ooh.
And mine is no as well.
I guess we could have done a little bit of more review on which wagers we were picking out here to be. Does anybody have a replacement wager for this? Unless Thomas is going to be the Yahoo on this one to say yes.
I think
he's going to say yes.
Listen. Right. Dream scenario. You have 3 of the top robots all in one alliance. They can all score really fast everywhere on the thing. But I do not think that teams will be able to achieve the level of coordination required in order for this to happen in PCH.
So your answer
in that one lucky match.
No? Is your answer long-winded no?
No.
Wait, so your answer is yes. You just answered his question with a no.
No, my answer is I think it's theoretically possible, but I think the stars will have to align, and then the vernal equinox will have to happen, and then a bunch of other crazy stuff.
Yeah, I think it has to happen like a practice match or at Grits where people are like, all right, don't worry about the climbing. We're going to go for it.
Yeah, I think that the climbing ranking point is going to be too big of a thing for teams to be, to ignore it.
All right. All right. With
well,
this
along
with
with
this being the
Got
case,
it.
we're gonna scratch this question because we're all answering no. So what we're gonna
I like it. We all answer no.
I
It's on
think I
tape.
got a replacement one. I think I
Okay.
got a replacement one.
I got one
I think I
too.
got a good.
I got an over/under.
What do you think will be the average ranking point
Ooh.
of the average ranking point score that the lowest team will have at state competition?
Huh? No,
lowest.
that
team.
doesn't make any sense.
What?
Lowest team.
I'd
No,
go. I'd go for
what
highest team.
Highest team.
Or
Lowest team, I
no,
don't-
not the reason I say lowest team. How many unicorn matches and how accessible do you think the ranking points are going to be towards the end of the season? If you look at the lowest team,
There's 50
this
teams
year
at state
at
champ.
states.
They're district champs, Thomas.
You're
If
asking
you-
me a
if-
question
if-
I've never even pondered ever.
Okay, if
This
you
is-
look,
I have.
if you look at, if
Hey Brian, what's your
Prepared.
question?
Yeah, my
Sorry,
question-
Thomas.
Well, the funny
I like
thing
it.
is, look, I've never pondered at the state level. It gets higher, but generally at district qualifiers, 16 ranking points gets you about 8th seed. And at the beginning of the season, about 21, 22 will get you the 1 seed. By the time you get to week 5 or 6, wherever the season is, you're looking at 24 and 25, but 16 still got you, because it wasn't like everybody doesn't get better. It's like 3 or 4 or 5 teams get better up there, but the 16 gets you there. So I would probably say 18. I'll go 19 for.
I'm not even.
are we saying
what the
18
wager
for
is
the
anymore.
what? Okay,
The
I
ranking-
think it's
The,
Ranking points needed to be the 8th seed.
no.
Yeah.
No. At the end of qualifications, what would the ranking points be for the 8th ranked team?
Again, a question.
that's the
At
exact same
district
thing.
championships?
Say the different.
I
'Cause
never even
the-
think about it.
Let's punt on district
All right.
championship. I'll change this then. What'll be the average ranking point for the first team seeded number 1 at Albany?
Well, I was going to
Well,
say
at
how
Albany.
many
1.8.
how many recharge RPs do you think it will be at Albany?
Recharge RPs.
That's the balance RP, right?
Balance RP. Well, no.
Yeah, I
They-
don't.
they-
I
yes,
don't
they
know.
keep
the
Changing the thing.
They don't have
Question. What
to.
is the question?
What? So, what do you think the number one
Moving targets,
Alliance
David.
captain?
This
What do
that
I think the
piss poor
ranking?
planning kind of thing. That was us here.
Yeah.
So I think there's going to be a team that wins every one, or maybe will lose 1 or 2, as you usually do. So you got at least the 20 RPs right out of the gate for you're just purely winning. I think it's going to be pretty scarce, if at all, happening for the
Lynx.
the link
The Lynx
RP.
RP.
So I'm gonna count that one as a 0, assuming it's not going to happen week 1. And then
Yeah.
number 2 for the charging station RP, I'm going to give them probably 5 or 6 times out of their 12 matches.
Ooh, I think that's a
For
bit
one
aggressive.
robot.
So 6. So I'm
Well,
looking
and-
at 26
So
RP.
you're saying in week 1, there's a team that in half their matches, all 3 of their robots are going to move.
You don't need 3 robots.
I think there will be
I think we could
Think-
potentially see.
7
Is this question important?
balance RPs week 1 total of all the matches.
7 balance RPs.
Out of all the matches.
Yep.
All right. Well, we'll make that our question then. How many balance RPs are going to happen week 1 Albany?
Okay. Total balance RPs.
We finally settled on it, David.
Okay,
So
that's the
apply.
question. All right. Well, now I'm not even thinking about that. All right. Fair enough. I answer that question by how many robots can do balance and auto. So let's say 1, and then they have to go up with a partner. So if you have somebody that can do the balance and auto, then that person, every match they play in 12 matches, they just got to find one more competent partner to balance with them. So yeah, I think your 7 to 8 is about right.
What's your number?
I
You gave 2. So who else hasn't answered?
I haven't answered. I'm going optimistic. I'm going 15.
For week 1.
Yep.
I think if this was doable with just one team, I would be confident that it could happen more often than not. But it being week 1, I have flashbacks to 2018 Dalton, which was the first event, or not the first. I forget. No, I guess 2018 Dalton, where the team 1771 won the event, not driving before Elims.
Thomas, what is your answer?
Yes.
I'm gonna go 6.
6. All right.
And
yeah, I
David,
think
what was
there's
your
gonna
answer?
I said 7 or 8, but let me go 8.
All right, we got you down as an 8.
Yeah, I think there's gonna be 3 to 5 bots that are gonna be able to do that, and it's just an RNG if they get paired up or not.
Well, no. So I don't. I think you're looking at robots that can balance an auton, right? And I'd assume there's at least 2 of those.
You don't
But
have to balance
so-
all time. If you
No,
just
the
knock
door
out-
is much. I'm saying the door is much wider open
Okay,
to get
yeah.
that RP. In which case, you only need that robot again and
Right,
one
with
of their
one
alliance
competent
partners in
And
order to
so-
get up there and get the RP. That's why my number's high.
Right. So that's why my number was 7 or 8, because I said only one robot there could do it.
All right, so let's do the inverse. Now, remember this week, last, is it week 6 or 5? What's our last week of competition this year? I forget.
Week 5 is Oliver.
Right. So week 5. Now, week 5 also has a fairly decent amount of, fairly good amount of teams there.
Well, yeah.
How many link RPs do you think will occur week 5?
Can we make it state instead of week 5?
Yeah.
'Cause a
Yeah.
lot of
Week
the-
5, they have to know the
a
teams.
lot-
All right.
Yeah, that week 5 ends up being weird, where a lot of really the powerhouse teams, they end up skipping, not going to week 5, just so their turnaround into states is a lot nicer.
All right. So at district champs, how many link RPs?
Oh, link RPs. Okay.
Link RPs.
Let me tell you, Mr. Bryan, I think at district championships, I think we're going to have another situation where to be number 1, you're going to need to be averaging higher than 3 RPs to get rank 1. I think the link RP is going to how many matches will it be at?
Well,
It's
I
what?
don't know if we can do it that way. We're going to have to do it like by percentage. How many
No,
of the
I
matches
think- yeah.
will link?
I think
How
there's-
many percentage?
So there's
The link
usually
RP.
about 80 matches for the 24. At 50, I'm guessing it could be like 110, 120.
It's still averages.
So 2019 Peachtree District State Champs, 45 teams, and had a total of 90 matches. So 180
Okay.
opportunities
So
for a link.
100 audit. I think it's going to happen.
180
Let's
for
go-
45 teams. It'll be a handful more for 50 teams.
Yeah. I'm going to go. The link RP will happen 76 times at state.
Give me a percentage, roughly.
Oh,
Is that
okay. Give it a percentage.
rough
I think.
percentage?
That's 75 out of 200. So what, the 30?
Oh no, then I think that I missed the math. I'm gonna go. Let's say 65%, whatever that ends up being.
So 130 times out of 200.
So, yeah.
I'm going to. Wow.
yeah,
I'm going to say.
everybody's doing 15 solo, right, Rob? Thomas?
I'm going to say.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
link,
yeah.
The link rank
Well,
point.
you have to remember. I think it's
Hold
like
on.
doable for teams to get 12.
Is 20% of the matches.
So
What
you
is
said
20% of the
20%,
matches?
20.
So
Yes.
that would be like 40 then, right?
Yeah, I think
Mhm.
40 or so.
And I think I'm being liberal. Just saying.
I'm gonna say
Are we saying 20% of matches or 20% of opportunities? That's
20%
different,
of
'cause
opportunity. You've got
okay.
two people. You got two alliances. Who gets
Yeah.
the rank point? So it's 20% of the opportunities.
Gotcha. Just
Well,
That's how the Blue Alliance does it.
Yeah.
So if you go again back and look at 2019 for the Hab docking RP, that happened 82 out of 180 times at about 45%.
I consider it more like the Rocket rank
Yeah.
point, which is a cycling game. And guess what your average was? 12.8.
yeah,
I think. Oh no.
12.8. So I
you
think
had
20 I was
20%.
being liberal.
the 20% would be 40 matches, right? I think it's going to be like, I'm going to say 30 matches. So that's like 15%.
Yeah, 15%. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I went high with 20. I think I'm high.
Yeah.
The thing is,
It's a
compared to
challenge.
rockets, though, it's a full individual rocket, which is a little bit harder to do as a single team or as an alliance. Whereas in this case, it's a full wall grid that a 3 over
Yeah,
here, a 3 over here.
The defense was harder. I get it. Blah 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 blah. 20.
I think I agree with you.
Okay.
I think we'll leave. I don't know. One final question. I don't know if it's worth it or not. But what I'm going to toss out there is, what does everybody think 1771 is thinking about right now, and what rule are they twisting to take advantage of this game? That's just putting them on the spot.
I have gotten many a picture of them taking Sawzalls to their 2022 robot. So
I think they're going after those swerve modules. That's what they're doing.
I think they're trying to figure out how to seal their wood.
How to what? How to seal,
the wood.
Oh,
so they don't get the humidity in spring.
How many pounds of water weight will 1771 gain in Emerson, Georgia?
I think didn't they have like almost 2 pounds at Worlds?
Here's what they're thinking about.
I think it was like 3 or 4 at Worlds. They were over by significant margin at Worlds.
All right.
What do you got over there?
Here's what they're thinking about. How do you triple balance? Guarantee it. That's what they're thinking.
What I think they're thinking about is the same exact thing they're thinking about last year, is the momentary control. So you can control as many game pieces as you want to in the loading zone and in your scoring area, but you can only possess the one game piece in the center zone.
Well, they're also going to be thinking about that. Yep.
There's still the momentary control thing, is the 3 seconds. So if you can load up on a boatload of game pieces and whoosh them across the middle of the field fast enough, then
oh no, I'm calling it now. 1771 is just gonna have a big dump truck bucket on their back of their robot, and then it's just gonna dump it out. Oh,
but
that'll be an interesting Q&A. Right? Can I?
Yeah. I think
can I take 45 game pieces across the middle of field?
You can. It's in the rules, because if they say no,
until somebody writes a Q&A question about it.
Well, no. All right. So if you do something that's not illegal, right? So it's. Let me ask you this: if I pin you for 4 seconds and step away, and pin you for 4 seconds, step away, if I do that 3 times, is that now a foul?
That's a established historical thing. They haven't changed that rule in eons.
But it's a rule that if you do it long enough, it becomes a penalty. So why is this rule, if you do it long enough and you don't do it long enough, it becomes a penalty? Because it's just like pinning.
That's a question for the
I think that is a question for clarification. I think it'll be very hard to call for refs right there.
I think the GDC did not intend this to be a dump truck game. Now they could say that's clever
to be a dump truck game, but we are going to make it one.
Right? I mean, last year at Worlds, there were teams doing the 3-ball thing, right? So it's the same rule.
Mm-hmm. So we'll leave you with that. I think we're going to leave you all with that level of vagueness.